My name is Harper Miller. And the day my parents showed up with a moving truck to throw me out of my grandfather's house was the same day they discovered I had legally locked them out weeks earlier. The craziest part? They were smiling when they arrived. Like they had already won. Like I was still the quiet daughter who would hand everything over just to keep the peace. But what they didn't know was that while they were planning my eviction behind my back, I had already made one irreversible move that destroyed their entire plan before it even started. And before I tell you how my own family tried stealing the only place where I ever truly felt loved, subscribe to the channel, because stories like this prove one thing. The people who call you selfish for setting boundaries are usually the people who benefited most from you having none. I learned how to disappear long before I realized I was doing it. In my family, attention always moved toward my younger sister Emily. If Emily was upset, the entire house changed around her mood. If Emily wanted something, conversations stopped until she got it. But me? I was the easy child. The mature one. The independent one. Which really meant the one expected to survive without much care. My mother used to smile and say, "Harper understands." And honestly, I did. I understood that asking for too much usually ended in disappointment. So I stopped asking. I stopped expecting birthdays to matter equally. Stopped expecting my achievements to stay in conversations longer than 30 seconds before the topic shifted back to Emily. Over time, being overlooked became normal. The only place where I didn't feel invisible was my grandfather's house. George Miller lived near the coast in a small weathered home where the porch creaked under your feet, and the ocean could be heard at night if the wind was quiet enough. Nothing there was luxurious, but everything there felt safe. When I spoke, my grandfather listened carefully, like my words mattered simply because they were mine. As he got older, I started helping more. Groceries, bills, appointments, long afternoons where we barely talked at all. And somehow, those quiet moments became the closest thing to peace I'd ever known. Meanwhile, my parents and Emily mostly visited when holidays approached or decisions needed to be discussed. Even then, my grandfather always noticed the difference. "You show up when nobody's watching," he once told me quietly. At the time, I didn't realize how important that sentence would become. Then my grandfather died. And suddenly, everything changed. At first, my family acted supportive. Too supportive. My mother started calling more often, asking casual questions about the house. The taxes. The paperwork. The maintenance. Emily started showing up unannounced, wandering through rooms slowly like she was mentally redecorating them already. One afternoon she leaned against the doorway smiling and said, "This room would make a beautiful office." Not your office. Just office. Like ownership had already shifted in her mind. At first I told myself I was imagining things. That grief was making me paranoid. But the conversations kept getting stranger. It wouldn't be fair for one person to keep everything. Your grandfather would have wanted the house shared. We're family. Things should stay simple. Simple. That word always appeared whenever someone wanted me to quietly give something up. Then one night, sitting alone in my grandfather's living room, everything finally clicked. I realized something terrifying. They weren't asking anymore. They were preparing. And for the first time in my life, I didn't ignore the feeling. The next morning, during lunch break, I quietly walked into a small estate attorney's office downtown. No drama. No emotional speech. Just clarity. I explained everything. The pressure. The assumptions. The sudden interest in the property. The attorney listened carefully before finally saying, "What you're describing isn't uncommon." That sentence alone made me feel less crazy. Then he explained something that changed everything. An irrevocable trust. Simple. Quiet. Legally untouchable once completed. No loophooks. No emotional manipulation. No sudden ownership changes. So I signed everything. Weeks before my family made their move, I had already secured the house legally in my name through the trust. And I told nobody. That part mattered most. Because silence became my advantage. My family mistook calmness for weakness. Every time I nodded politely, their confidence grew. Emily started openly joking about renovations. My parents began discussing future plans for the house right in front of me, like the decision had already been made. And I let them. Because people reveal everything when they think resistance is impossible. Then came Sunday morning. Gray sky. Cold wind. The sound of tires crunching against gravel outside the house. I stepped onto the porch holding coffee when I saw it. A moving truck. Behind it, my parents' SUV. My stomach tightened. Not from fear. From disbelief. They actually came with movers. Emily stepped out first, smiling brightly. "We got everything sorted," she announced confidently while holding fake paperwork. "The house is officially in my name now. No hesitation. No scam. Just certainty." My mother tilted her head sympathetically. "It's not personal, sweetheart. This is what's best for the family." My father crossed his arms. "You've always been independent, Harper. You'll recover faster than Emily would." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Because suddenly, I was 12 years old again, hearing the same excuse for every unfair thing that ever happened. Emily smiled wider. "You should start packing. Movers will handle the rest." They were waiting for panic. For tears. For surrender. Instead, I simply said, "Okay." The relief on their faces was immediate. They thought I'd folded. Emily actually laughed. "We'll come back in 2 hours," she said confidently. Then they left. Still smiling. Still believing they had already won. 2 hours later, they returned with the movers. Only this time, I wasn't alone. Standing beside me on the porch was Michael Turner. My attorney. Calm. Professional. Holding one thick folder under his arm. The moment my family saw him, everything shifted. The movers slowed first. Then Emily's smile disappeared completely. Michael stepped forward calmly. "This property was legally transferred into an irrevocable trust several weeks ago," he said. "Harper Miller is the sole trustee." Silence. Heavy silence. Emily laughed nervously. "That's impossible." Michael opened the folder. "The documents you attempted filing are legally invalid." My mother's face drained of color. "There must be some mistake." "There is no mistake," Michael interrupted calmly. Then came the line that completely destroyed them. "Any attempt to remove the trustee from this property may now qualify as fraudulent interference." Even the movers looked uncomfortable. One of them quietly stepped backward toward the truck. My father's voice hardened instantly. "Are you accusing us of something?" "I'm stating facts," Michael replied. That's when Emily finally looked directly at me. "You did this." And for the first time in my life, I didn't shrink to make someone else comfortable. I looked straight back at her and said, "I protected what wasn't yours to take." Nobody spoke after that. Because there was nothing left to say. Their confidence collapsed right there on the porch. The movers slowly returned to the truck. My mother looked shocked. My father looked humiliated. And Emily? She looked betrayed by the fact that I finally stopped being weak enough to control. Before leaving, Michael handed my father an official notice warning them against any future attempts involving the property. That was the moment reality finally hit them. They weren't negotiating anymore. They had already lost. The moving truck pulled away slowly. And just like that, everything became quiet again. Later that night, my phone filled with messages. "You embarrassed us. This could have been handled privately. You didn't need lawyers." But that's the thing about people who benefit from your silence. The moment you protect yourself, they suddenly call it cruelty. Over the next few weeks, the messages slowly stopped. Then the calls stopped. Then the relationship itself quietly collapsed. Not because of the house. Because control was gone. And without control, they no longer knew how to love me. One afternoon, weeks later, I sat alone on my grandfather's porch listening to the ocean move in the distance. The same house. The same wind. The same creaking wood beneath my feet. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel temporary inside my own space. That's when I finally understood something my grandfather had been trying to teach me all along. Belonging isn't something you beg people for. It's something you protect. And sometimes the strongest thing a quiet person can do is stop making themselves smaller, so everyone else feels comfortable.